The definition of addiction on some level is that you want to change your state, right? So there's a state you're in that you don't want to experience. And this can be the addiction to more and more and more. This can be the addiction to TikTok, Instagram, right? These are all designed to continue to keep you out of the present moment, when the present moment is where all the magic is. It's where life is. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mark Groves Podcast. Today I'm coming at you with a solo episode where we're going to talk about how to tease out, how to differentiate our trauma from our truth, our triggers from truth. And what I mean by that is when you're in the circumstances of your life and you feel like you're getting activated or reactive and you can feel that come up and you want to do something, say something, it's like, how do I tease out if this is a reactivity that's coming from an automated, painful place, my trauma? Or is it truth? Is this truth? Do I want to leave this relationship because of truth or because I'm afraid of commitment? Do I want to start this relationship and am I drawn to this person because it's clear that this is a really good choice for me? Or is it coming from a place I'm attracted to them because of some other reason, something that I can't differentiate? So I say all of that because it's so important that we learn how to pay attention to the felt sense we have, to come back to the feelings we have in our body and be able to differentiate what the feelings mean. So in this episode, I talk about the tools and techniques and what makes for the ability to do that, and how important it is to have access to a clear no so we can have access to a clear yes, and that allows us to differentiate more what's going on in our body. So obviously, let's get right into it. And before I do that, this episode was actually recorded for my private community, Aligned. And so every month I release an extra solo episode that's just for the community. So if you're part of that community, amazing. And if you're looking to join that and you'd like access to that and get more episodes like the one that you're about to hear, just go to markgroves.com/aligned and you can get on the wait list for the next time the doors open. So make sure you hit subscribe wherever you get this episode because we just keep getting juicier and juicier. So without further ado, here we go. You know, I think about on the tail end of leaving Instagram and just what that exit is releasing for me. Kylie, my wife, asked me on Saturday morning just last week, how does it feel to be saying goodbye to over 10 years on a platform? And I said it feels like a gentle goodbye. Feels like the right thing, you know, when you have to let something go, you know, and as my friend Peter Crone would say, maybe it's not letting go, but rather letting be. You know, I've thought a lot about how when you have access to what is your no, you get much more clear access to your yes. And when your yes is actually a no, then your yes isn't authentic. So let me explain that a little differently. If sometimes you say yes when you want to say no, then your yes isn't actually real. People on a subtle, unconscious level, or a very obvious, explicit level, can't actually trust you to tell the truth. Now, that could be something they exploit by asking you to do tons of stuff you don't want to do, like drive them to the airport at 3 a.m. or, you know, help someone move, because, I mean, who likes helping people move? And I'm not saying you can't do that as friends for people, of course. But what I am saying is that it is imperative that we get very clear on what we desire in our lives and that we at least have access to say no to something. That we at least have experienced a no when we are pushing up against the friction of desiring to be liked. I was saying to a friend this morning that it's better to say no to a yes than it is to say yes to a no. And the reason is that when you say yes to something that's a no, it puts you in a place you don't want to be. As where when you say no to something that's a yes, you give yourself the opportunity to recognize where you want to be. So one puts you where you don't want to be, and the other one allows you to build the information of where you want to be. It's almost like if we don't have boundaries, what often happens is our initial response to that is to create walls around ourselves. You know, to say, like, I can't be in relationship with anything or anyone that I don't have choice in relationship with. Like if we have a really manipulative, let's say, parent, that it doesn't matter what we do, we just find ourselves getting twisted and turned, that we actually have to end that relationship, right? And I would argue that a lot of our inability to access a no is framed from our childhood. Maybe we had to take care of a parent. Maybe we didn't witness our mother or father set boundaries with each other or one to the other. Maybe if we said no, we were unsafe. Maybe if we said no, someone in our family we felt would be unsafe, that we had to help them or else something bad might happen. So what happens, even though it's not logically real, even with a friend or a stranger who's like, hey, can you do that? And you're like, yeah, I can do that. When the truth is, no, you can't. You don't want to. You don't have the capacity. This is so fascinating, right? Because what's going on the deeper, and we might call like neurological level, the neural pathways that are formed are if I say no, X might happen. If I say no, blank might happen. That's what I meant by X, but then I realized that word might not work for some people. If I say no, blank might happen. To feel into the truth that the reason we don't have full access to the boundaries around our lives is such a powerful truth to recognize. That where it comes from is actually a survival based thing. We must have compassion for it. We must. Because when we reject parts of ourselves, we have shame about the fact that we can't access a no. We then can't grow from it, as opposed to really stepping into the truth that, of course, I don't have access to a no. Look what I was taught. Look at the circumstances I experienced. Look at what society taught me about saying no or having boundaries as a woman, as a man. Look what it taught me. When we learn messages like, I take the high road, that idea that, oh, I'm always the one who repairs. Which repair is great, but repairing with people who aren't interested in repair is continued self abandonment. And taking the high road all the time, sometimes the high road is a painful road to take because it actually is us taking grenades to avoid conflict because we can't handle that someone might be frustrated with us, even though our truth is that we are frustrated, that there's something not working for us, but we make it work, don't we? But when you make things work on the outside that don't work for you on the inside, you really suffer. And I would argue that all, but just for qualifying sakes, let's say almost all, addictions are sourced from the inability to be with the pain of our own self abandonment. How can we stay in our own bodies when we don't even feel safe to stand up for ourselves in our own bodies? Because the definition of addiction on some level is that you want to change your state, right? So there's a state you're in that you don't want to experience. And this can be the addiction to more and more and more. This can be the addiction to TikTok, Instagram, right? These are all designed to continue to keep you out of the present moment when the present moment is where all the magic is. It's where life is. And I say all this because to come back to the first part, which is, do you have access to your voice? Do you have access to your no? Is your yes authentic? And when we can be with the reality of that, we know we can then shape our lives differently. Because if you're thinking, you know what, I actually definitely don't have access to a full no, welcome to the club. Because I'm going to tell you, if you're someone who often self abandons, the space where you actually end is way back from where you say yes to. You're going to start to say no to things and you're going to be like, oh, I actually don't want to do that either. I'm not interested in that. And if you're someone who says no to a lot of things, you might feel more walled up, more unavailable. The distance to which you desire to stretch out and reach people and be in relationship with people is much further away from you than you've allowed yourself. Both of these are about having a lack of trust in others to respect our own boundaries and have their own experience to our no or our yes, and that experience be separate from our desire and our boundary. So my no is not unsuccessful because you don't like it. You not liking my no is your response to my no. If I actually collapse and forget or step away from what my actual desired answer is in order to minimize your reactivity, then I'm leaving myself. And what kind of life do we create when we are constantly making choices based on how people feel about our choices? You're not standing in an authentic space. You're not in your authentic self. You don't trust yourself. You can't then sit in a still space with silence and be with your feelings. You can't, because there's a deep feeling of grief and sadness, maybe resentment and anger, because you wonder, what about you? When do I get to go first? When do I get prioritized? If no one modeled that for you, that can be an important pathology, an important source of where that might come from. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where it comes from. It matters what you want. It matters what you desire to create in your life. Ultimately, to live a life that feels free, that feels exciting, that feels possible, that feels all the things, that feeling you get when you're like, I think there's more. But you should be happy with what you have, is the response. I feel like something's missing. But if I acknowledge something's missing, then I have to be with the truth that something's missing, which means I desire to find something. But if I desire to find something that isn't what I have, then do I want what I have? All the thoughts we're afraid to own, all the feelings we're afraid to acknowledge, they just lead to possible actions that scare us. And we don't have to take action. We can just take inquiry. We could take curiosity. We could stop running from what we might be feeling and just maybe feeling it. Because it's often the feeling that we need to take action that makes us not want to feel. But you can start with just feeling. In this community, we're about holding each other up to being aligned with our values, being aligned with what is integrity for us, laying truth at the altar, like, in my wife and I's book, Liberated Love, we talk about. That's one of the core tenets of liberated love, but that's a core tenet of living well, which is a fierce dedication to the truth, the honoring that you and I both have paths, and they might not walk alongside each other forever. And that's okay. But they might, if we're dedicated to truth, actually have an opportunity. There might be something possible when we say, hey, when you're in relationship with me, oh man, we encourage each other's dreams. We don't let each other high. We don't let each other play small. We go to the moon or whatever is beyond that. Our role in one another's lives is to see where we might be hiding, to see where there's a possibility we're running from because we're afraid of actually getting all the things we've always desired. We're not sure we're worthy of it because someone else told us we weren't, or we watched other people shrink and not pursue what they dream, and then they tell us, who are you to love that much? Who are you to not appreciate what you have? Who are you to want more? Oh, well, how can you not? It is a gift to be in relationship with you, when being in relationship with you is synonymous with you honoring your boundaries, honoring your values, and also sharing and co-creating a relationship space with me that invites the same and encourages the same. What a beautiful thing that is. I hope this inspires you to get a little more clear on what your yes and no truly mean. And if you can't own both of those words, then you can't trust yourself. And if you can't access your full voice, you can't direct your life. And as I've mentioned before, that then will often correlate to the experience of anxiety or maybe even depression, because we don't believe we can create what we desire, when creating what we desire comes from having access to our no and our yes. Much love.